You're back with the Get Out Debt Guy. You got the old fart. Myself, Steve Rhode, and the new fart, Damon Day. Say hello, Damon.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
In case I forget, you can always reach Damon through his website, damonday.com, DAMONDAY.com. But, you know, it's a new year, new you, and there's a number that you've been avoiding. Maybe you had kind of a rough idea in your head, somewhere at around $70,000 or $80,000. You know what I'm talking about? Talking about your credit card debt and other debt that you owe. Maybe you genuinely don't know because you haven't added it up in years, but today we're going to change that and we're going to make it painless and simple, and it's going to start to expand your eyes without any guilt or shame. We're going to walk you through a complete financial audit step by step, and this is the hardest episode we'll ask you to sit through because it's also the most important. Now, let's get to the importance of tracking your numbers, and let's do this together. Damon?
Steve.
What do people need? It's a crappy question. But what do people need in order to make good decisions?
They need information.
Accurate information.
Information for 500, Bob.
Yeah. What is what I need?
Yeah. Honestly, most people, if you don't know most people don't know how much money they owe. Most people have an idea in their head, and in almost every situation, when they actually face it and write it down and start to figure out a strategy, it's more than they think they owed.
Yeah. So when I had, the big financial company, and we had 20,000 people tracking their finances, what we found was that people typically underestimated their debt by about 20% and overestimated their income by about the same thing. And so it's your brain's trick. When something feels stressful or you don't want to deal with it, it kind of makes up its own reality.
Yeah. It allows you to get through the day. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's okay. I can get to that. I can still solve it. I'll figure it out. Well, we're still going to Dave Ramsey our way out of this thing. It's fine. It's not a big
no
deal.
problem. Everybody does it.
3 times my income. What the hell?
Well, the reality is that vague dread or the I can't face it is worse than the specific knowledge. Because if we have actual data, then we can have an actual plan and not a wish list.
Yeah.
Yep. People who know their exact numbers, like when they work with you, and
so this
you
is
sit down with
the
them.
boring podcast. You got to know your numbers.
Well, no, but people who work with you and have a grip on their numbers, and you help them to do that without having any guilt or shame about it. But once that happens, then we can eliminate the dread, and you help them develop a specific plan on how to move forward.
Yeah, because then the numbers give us the roadmap, right? The numbers can tell us how deep are we in, how do we stop digging this hole, and how aggressive do we need to get out of it? So knowing those numbers is important, which is why I always crack up. When you go to Steve, you're very familiar with this concept, the credit counseling company, because you ran one for many years.
Yeah.
But my favorite part of that whole sales pitch that people get on the credit counseling program, and not to say that credit counseling is never a viable solution. I'm not saying that. It's a lot more rare of a viable solution these days. But my favorite part is the completely made up fake budget that they have you do over the phone, where you're just riffing off the top of your head. And then they use those numbers to say, oh, okay, this is a good fit for you. This is a good program.
Right.
But they'll also, if the numbers don't add up, they'll also say, no, you don't qualify.
Right.
And it's like, these numbers aren't even real, bro.
Right. And here's the thing. So, back in the day when you would tell somebody, look, you can't afford this program, 99 times out of 100, the person on the phone would go, oh, you know what? I got my income wrong. It's really they would manipulate it. And I remember having a conversation with a creditor one day because I was talking to him about a client's budget. And I said, she goes, "What's their budget?" I said, "Well, they don't know yet. We're tracking the expenses for the next 30 days so we can come up with factual numbers, and I'll share that."
Yeah.
And she goes, "What, you want them to track like how much milk they buy?" It's like, "Oh, you want to guess? Okay, well, I got to guess right now."
Dude, the whole thing is ridiculous. It's just this dog and pony show that you have to do.
Yeah.
I do the same thing when I'm negotiating with creditors and they're like wanting to know the client's budget,
Yeah.
So I'll pull up the numbers that I have and I'm starting to go through it and they're like, no, I see like an overall just kind of round number
Yeah.
total. And some of them, depending on the creditor,
Yeah.
you have to, I have to take this plane in for a landing, right?
Right.
And my job, really, when I negotiate debt for clients, is really to help the creditor get out of their own damn way, so we can get a deal done. So sometimes I have to, let's say, massage the numbers a little bit just to serve it up to the creditor in a way that their computer system would go, okay. For instance, if you're trying to get a settlement, but you need a payment plan for the client because the client can't afford a lump sum.
Yeah.
You can't make their situation so bad that they have no money that the creditor just goes, well, they can't afford that payment. They're too broke, right?
Right.
But you also can't make it to where they have enough money either, because then they don't need a deal. So you just have to like land this plane for them and serve it up to them on the range that will fit. And you have to know what they care about and what they don't care about. There's certain expenses they don't care about.
Right. Well, that's the power of experience. That's why, while people say, well, I can do it myself. Yeah, but you don't know all this stuff.
Yeah. You remember that one story I told you where the guy was literally like, it was a new collector. I hadn't dealt with them before, this several years ago. And he was just kind of walking me into it. Like I had made like an offer. They're like, no, we can't do that. Make another offer. So I made another offer that was lower.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we're getting closer. Make another offer. So I'm sitting there. I'm at my desk and I'm like, am I getting punked here? Is Ashton Kutcher about to jump out? Like, so I made another, it was lower. And he's like, almost. Another one. And he was negotiating against himself, basically. And I was just like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, he probably had rules he didn't want to say on a recorded line about giving a lower number, so he was clever in doing that.
Yeah, it was just hilarious. I was like, well, thanks.
Now, there are, what? Go ahead.
I was going to say, but the bottom line is, you have to know the numbers. Even if your creditor might not get your exact numbers, you need to know your numbers so we can put together, we don't want to put together a strategy like a credit counseling program does, where they take a whole bunch of fake numbers and they go, oh, this plan's going to work, right? Because it won't. We have to have real numbers to give you a real plan that is likely to work.
Yeah, I mean, think about it like, my years of being a pilot. You always wanted to know exactly how much fuel was in your tanks because that would be your range.
Pilots don't like to estimate that kind of stuff.
Oh, no.
Especially with souls on board.
Oh, man, I get very sweaty when it gets, we used to get low.
That's why the Tesla does not give you range anxiety.
Oh, no, not at all. No, I love it. So if some people are really good about being, I was going to say attentive or anal about, their numbers, very focused on it. They got spreadsheet after spreadsheet. But if that doesn't sound like you, and it certainly doesn't sound like Damon or myself, one of the easy ways that you can try to get a really good idea of how much you owe is to pull a credit report. And you can go to annualcreditreport.com. That's the official free site. And you can get a copy of your credit reports. And not every credit report will show you every creditor or even the exact same balance.
Yeah, make sure you pull all three.
Yeah. And Damon, you want to explain why that happens?
Well, because the credit reporting system is basically a scam. That's the
Well, that
short
is
version.
that is true. I remember having a conversation with an executive from one of the credit bureaus. We were talking about pre-employment credit reports, and I said, there's no evidence about credit reports and credit scoring and employment. So why do you keep pushing this?
Like no correlation you're talking about
Right, no
between like a good
correlation.
employee and good credit.
Right, yeah. And he looked at me and he goes, "Steve, we sell credit reports."
But yeah, I mean,
Touche.
for the uninitiated, you've got 3 credit reports. You got 3 different reports. You got
Yeah.
Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion.
Yep.
And when you really start to dive into it, it can get maddening because you feel like your whole life is based on this mysterious number, and this mysterious number has to be at a certain level so you can get better interest rates and feel good about yourself. But it gets to the point where it's maddening if you don't understand the game, because the numbers are all different, depending on what bureau you pull it from, depending on what version you pull, depending on what you're trying to buy. There's not just one number. But that being said, if you understand it, you can manipulate it. So
Right.
there's 2 sides to that coin. As they say, don't hate the player, hate the game.
Right, right. Well, I mean, that's very true because one credit bureau, like you said, you can have multiple credit scores that you don't see. You'll have one that they show you, and then you'll have one for like mortgage, one for car loans, one
Yeah.
for, insurance scores. So you don't, I mean, this is the best data that you can get. It's still not completely factual because, um, you know, who knows what time it really is, and the whole credit score number is something that is arbitrarily made up. And even individual creditors can adjust that score based on their own algorithms and calculations. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So depending on what you're trying to do, there is ways where you can tilt the odds in your favor, and utilize the system to your advantage. You're trying to buy a car, get a mortgage, or whatever, and figure out exactly what your bank is going to pull before they even pull it. And that's some pretty powerful information.
yeah, I mean, you have a great story about, I think it was getting a car loan or something. And you asked them, what version of the credit score are you using? And they didn't even know.
Oh yeah, you got to go up a layer or two when you start talking to them about, are you pulling it from TransUnion, Equifax, Experian? What version are you pulling? FICO 6, FICO 7, FICO 8, FICO 10. And then it really gets that detailed. But you can get all of that information and then call around and shop different creditors to make sure
Yeah.
you're getting the best rate. And you'll know exactly what your FICO score will be when they pull it, if you find out a couple of things before you authorize them to pull it. So
Yeah, and
again,
that's a good
it's
idea.
it's a game, but you just have to learn how to play it, and then you can put the odds in your favor. May the odds forever be in your favor.
Well, while you've got those credit reports in hand that you just got for free, I also want you to take a look at them and make sure that all the accounts that are listed on the reports are true and accurate, because this is your time to catch and see, are you a victim of identity theft? Is there stuff on there that you don't recognize? And if you find stuff that is absolutely incorrect, you can dispute it. I think you can dispute it with all of them online now. This is
Yeah,
not some sort of funky credit repair. This is, you just want to make sure that your credit reports are accurate.
yeah. Yeah, it's basically just letters that you send in and, ask them to investigate. I don't recognize this, or, there's different, reasons you can use. But the basis of any kind of, and I'm doing air quotes, credit repair is just basically saying, hey, I see something I don't like. I need you to investigate it. And if they can't verify it, please pull it off. And
Right.
so credit repair is just throwing a lot of paperwork at them,
Yeah.
usually, and hoping some of it doesn't get verified and some of the bad stuff falls off. Because I mean, let's be honest. I mean, there once in a while you're going to find some stuff that is legit, should be taken off. But most of the time you're like, yeah, I know I was late on
Yeah.
that one, but that was like a year ago and I don't like it. So let's see if we can get that off of there because I'm trying to buy a house right now.
Yeah. I need to pay for credit repair because I skipped a bill last year. And that's the thing. I mean, even if you had a credit repair company that bombarded them with dispute requests and it was temporarily removed, it'll get redumped back to the credit bureaus.
Yeah.
So it's better to deal with it factually. I would much rather see factual, not derogatory, but less than stellar credit on a credit report than trying to remove stuff that's factual that you don't like. And the reason being that you can rebuild good credit actually pretty easily. So don't get lost in the weeds or try to hide. Let's just do better moving forward.
Yeah, and the credit will actually repair on its own pretty quick, depending on what the situation is. But as long as you don't have, any current outstanding debts, once you get past that point and gets resolved,
Yep.
and then you start doing better moving forward and staying current on everything, you'd be surprised how fast your
Yeah.
credit is back up to what I would call a usable level.
Yeah. Creditors are in the lending business. It seems like they're looking for every excuse to lend to you.
Well, yeah, my favorite is always when because obviously the credit score is a big thing, and people are worried about it. If I, go bankrupt or I settle my
Yeah.
debt, it's going to hurt my credit. And then I'll always get, have conversations about, okay, well, that's a valid, concern. So let's talk about it, right? Let's, again, real numbers. Let's talk about real facts. Not, it sounds pretty scary to do that. And then we start talking about putting a dollar value on your actual FICO score. What's it worth to you over the next couple of years? And then I always will get things like, well, I won't be able to rent a house. If I have a
Well,
bad credit, I can't rent. And I was
mm,
and I always kind of follow that up with, well, it's easier to rent a place with good credit, but it doesn't mean you can't rent with
right.
not so great credit. And if that was true, there's millions of people in this country that have horrible credit.
Right.
Why are they not all homeless? Right. They're figuring out a way to still rent a place, with credit. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's not, I can't.
Impossible. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same thing. It's like, well, I have to have a credit card because I might need to rent a car one day. And it's like, well, there's ways that we can still rent a car without having to keep paying a minimum payment on a credit card that you owe $20,000 on.
Right.
So you're spending $500 or $600 a month because you may need to rent a car one day. That doesn't make any sense. Like we can solve the car rental issue separately and get rid of this $500 or $600 payment at the same time.
So now that we've decided we're going to get our numbers and we've written them down, or we pulled a credit report and found out what we owe, the next step in today's show is that aha or oh shit moment where you add it all up.
It's
Right?
usually an oh shit.
Yeah. That can't be true.
Yeah.
Well, but, so add it up and you might be surprised at what that number actually is. But don't worry, you're not alone. That is 85% of people are surprised. So look, just take a breath, and knowledge is power. And now that we have real numbers, now's when you call Damon and you say, Damon, I need some help making a plan. And you got real numbers to work with.
Yeah, and I know we keep harping on this real number thing, but like you said, Steve, the brain has a way of kind of protecting you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you can justify things when you don't know the actual numbers, but knowing those numbers absolutely helps you make what you perceive to be a tough decision, right?
Yeah.
You might say, I'm not going bankrupt. There's no way I'm going bankrupt. I'm not going to settle my debt. I don't want to fall behind. And my credit's important. But in your mind, you might have this kind of ballpark number in your head where you still think I'm going to be able to just kind of work my way out. Next year, 2026 is
Mm-hmm.
going to be a better year. I'm going to get a bigger bonus. I'm going to start this side hustle. I'm going to be a Lyft driver, whatever it is. But then all of a sudden you see the actual numbers, and then you realize it's a lot higher than you thought it was. And then you really start doing the math. All of a sudden that does open the door for some more aggressive strategies that you in your mind were saying, I don't want to do. But when faced with the reality, you're now more open to, okay, maybe, I can't Dave Ramsey my way out of this. And I'm not saying Dave Ramsey doesn't work. What I'm saying is you're not going to like the sacrifices you would have to make once
Yeah.
you look at
To
your
limp
numbers
along.
to make Dave Ramsey work, right? Because the math is math. So absolutely, if you get 10 roommates and don't eat anymore and
Yeah.
throw all of your income at your debt, the math is the math. You can get out of debt that way. But a lot of
Eventually.
people,
Yeah.
when faced with how much do I actually owe and what would it actually take for me to pay this debt off and what cuts would I have to make to my lifestyle and how would that affect myself and my family? Most people go, well, it's not that it can't work. It's just that screw that. I ain't doing that. No way. Right. And that's kind of where a lot of my clients are. A lot of the initial calls that I do has some version of, well, I read Dave Ramsey's book or I tried Dave Ramsey, but I didn't want to live my life like that for the next 5 or 6 years.
Right.
That's the
And that
very
makes sense
common
too.
reaction. Yeah, I'm like, I wouldn't want to live like that either.
Right. I mean, especially when you understand what you're sacrificing in your future retirement and your future net worth. And there are a whole bunch of considerations. But if I had a magic wand to wave, it would be if you sat down and added up all your numbers, it would be not to set off an alarm bell with whatever number that is. That actually, to me, that's immaterial. The only value of that number is in determining the path that fits you best to get out of debt and do better moving forward. It's not a judgment. It's just a
100%.
number.
Yeah. And so the credit reports, that's a place you start, but not
Yeah.
everything is going to be on the credit report. So you
Right.
still need to, you start with the credit report so you know at least what they know about you.
Right.
And then you fill in the blanks and you actually start tracking the stuff, which you should anyway. I like to use software. You can do it the old-fashioned way. You can write everything down. Everybody's different. Whenever anybody asks me, what software should I use to track or how should I track I always start with, well, what do you like?
Right.
What's your personality? Because different personalities, I could say, hey, go sign up for Monarch Money. I like Monarch
Yeah.
Money. And that works great for me. And then there's other people that don't like that kind of stuff. They want
Yeah,
they're
actually, that's
old-fashioned.
me.
They want to have an actual spreadsheet. And
Yeah,
so
it's as funny as it is that, I am very technical in everything that I do every day, but there is no way that I'm putting numbers into a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Give me a legal pad and a pen, and that's me.
Yeah. So my big thing is, the most effective strategy is the one that you're comfortable with and works for you. Because if you set up a plan with a strategy or some systems that don't work with, the way your brain works, you're not going to succeed at it. You're just not going to
Right.
do it, So you want to have the path of least resistance on how you do it. But no matter how you do it, whether you grab a pencil, that good old number 2, or you use a spreadsheet, or you use software that'll track the stuff automatically, you and your spouse, if you're
Right.
married, need to be on the same page and use something so that you can start a foundation of, okay, this is where we're at. Now we can put together a strategy to get where we want to go.
You
Because
don't have to
without
do it
that,
forever.
yeah, you can't just do hopes and dreams and then eventually we're going to be debt free. It does not work like that. If you don't have a specific plan, you will take the path of least resistance, and the path of least resistance tends to be more Amazon packages.
Well, there is something that accidentally happens when you start doing that for the first 30 days, is you will find that your discretionary spending goes down by about 20%. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and that's not because somebody is telling you to cut it out or you don't deserve it or anything else. It's just because you have temporarily created some awareness and now you are making decisions about, do I really need that?
It's just top of mind because
Yeah.
now you're actively thinking about it. You're going through it. You might be feeling some pain putting together the budget. So when you do make a purchase decision, it's right there, right? Just like when you go into the gym, most people, they start working out. It's January. Everybody's back to the gym. They start to eat better even if they're not
Yeah.
really thinking about it, because they're putting in the sacrifice and the time going to the gym to get in better shape. And so they just start naturally making better decisions on what they're eating because it's just top of mind. Like, okay, this is this big goal I have. I want to get back in shape. I know exactly what I need to do. I stepped on the scale. I looked at the number. I went, holy shit. And now all of a sudden they're eating better just because they're aware of it. Where
Good
in their
point.
mind, if they didn't step on the scale, right, their brain protects them. I'm not weighing 230. No. I'm rolling in at like 215. And then you step on the scale, 236. I've never been this heavy in my life. I might have some personal experience with this, Steve.
Yeah, okay, all right.
236, make my eyes bleed. What are we talking about? I must have gotten taller at mid-40s.
That's what it was. Absolutely.
I've gotten taller.
All right, so this week we gave you a little step about just gather the numbers, and then, with those numbers, you can actually start to make good decisions, or you can reach out to Damon, damonday.com, have a conversation about, hey, here's where we are, here's where we want to go, how do we get there? And it's important that you not jump to any conclusions, don't make any rash decisions, but in the week ahead, next week, we're going to talk about how to really use those numbers, how to build your strategy, and how that kind of gathering of numbers is the foundation for everything else.
Yeah, and it's important to add up the number and so we can see the debt, but it's also important too to add up from a cash flow perspective. What are you paying every month out of your paycheck to service this number, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that for a lot of people is very eye-opening as well, because I know everybody feels the pinch of groceries are going up. It's too expensive to go out to a restaurant. Everything is more and more expensive. But, if you're bringing home, $7,000 a month and you start adding all this stuff up and all of a sudden you realize you're spending $2,000 a month just on this hamster wheel, servicing debts, personal loans, credit cards, things like that. Imagine just for a second what your life could be like if that $2,000 expense just vanished. You could start investing into your future again. You could start investing in retirement. You can start relaxing a little bit, taking the family out to dinner once a week or whatever it is. But for most people, at least the ones that I see, and I know it's a skewed sample size because people that are coming to me are people that are in trouble, but what really gets them is when they really see how much money every month they're having to throw at this debt. And that's the number that helps them realize maybe I need to get a little bit more aggressive. Yeah, my credit score is important to me, but you know what's more important to me? Cash.
Right.
Cash and my future is more important than my credit score today. Because when you're 75, 80 years old, if you don't have a retirement and you're barely scraping to get by and hoping Social Security's there, I promise you're not going to look back and go, yeah, but I had a good credit score when I was 45 and that was what's important to me right now. You're going to hate your 45-year-old self if at 45 your credit score was more important than your future and your retirement. When you get to 75, you're going to be pissed that you chose your credit score over your retirement.
Absolutely. Have you heard people talking about we're in a K-shaped economy?
Yes.
Okay. So for anyone who doesn't know exactly what that means, it means that right now in our economy, the higher income earners and those with the most assets, their net worth is going up, like, the upper arm of the K. But for those who are middle class or upper middle class and below, you know how that lower arm of the K slopes down?
Yeah.
And that's the way we're headed. So I applaud you if you listen to us and you start gathering your numbers this week. You don't have to do it all today. And you start gathering your numbers and you start to say, hey, look, I want to do better moving forward and come up with a plan because we are in a K-shaped economy. And if you don't do anything, it is only going to get worse and harder, and you're not going to like the results.
Yeah, and one thing people need to come to the realization of, and maybe they're making 200 grand a year, 250, 300, 400. You used to think, oh, well, I'm in the upper middle class. Things are going well. I'm I'm at the point now where if you're not making at least $250,000, you're barely middle class. I
Yeah.
mean, everything is so expensive.
Yeah.
When you look at it, it's kind of been kind of a brain. I'm not going to use that word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
When and this is why a lot of high income earners have gotten in trouble. It's not that you've just ramped up your spending over the last couple of years. For most of you, most people that I see that are making 250,000 plus, all it was is your lifestyle has just essentially been the same
Yeah.
for the last 5 or 6 years. You haven't ramped it up. It's just things have gotten so expensive that life at $250,000 of income in 2018 looks very different than life today at $250,000. The inflation has been so crazy just in the last 5, 6, 7 years that's why so many high income earners are now struggling with credit card debt, simply because they didn't adjust their lifestyle down. Their income stayed the same and their lifestyle stayed the same, but
Hmm.
everything got more expensive, and that had to go on a credit card. And that's why you start seeing people 300 grand in income, 400 grand in income, and $250,000 in debt. They've just been accumulating that by not downgrading their lifestyle to adjust for this inflation.
Yeah, I think my record client had 45 cards and like $1.5 million in credit card debt.
Yeah. And
So,
that
you
and that
got,
and that was in
hmm?
the late 90s, early
Oh yeah,
2000s.
that's right.
So
That
that
was
was
way
like
back.
that was like $10 million in today's money.
Sadly,
Inflation is
sadly,
900%.
he resolved his problem by being so stressed he had a heart attack and died. It happens.
Yeah, that does suck.
Uh,
Well, way
hmm?
to bum us out on the call, Steve. And for our next joke,
How many financial advisors does it take to change a light bulb?
I'm not going to say to take to give a guy a heart attack.
So it's actually, if you feel like you're not making as much as you should and you're feeling really stressed about your debt, don't think that people who make really good money are feeling any different than you.
Yeah.
They
More
make a
money,
lot
more
more money.
problems.
That's right. I've said it before. My dad told me when I was a kid, doesn't matter how much you make, you always have the same amount left over at the end of the month. Nothing.
Your dad sounds like a smart man, because
He was.
he's had a lot of things he told you as a kid over these episodes.
I listened.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, next Thursday, we're going to talk about why the standard advice, just pay more than the minimum, is actually bullshit. It is terrible advice for people in most situations. And we'll show you the math on why it just doesn't work and what to do instead. If you have tried to follow this, we keep using his name, but it's more a name as an example. But if you've been following anyone and using the Dave Ramsey-ish type plan where you need to cut back and not be a loser and man up and take responsibility, that dog don't hunt. And if you've ever felt frustrated by personal finance advice that seems designed for people, not you, well, next week is for you.
Yeah. And it's not that strategy doesn't ever work, because it does work. But just like what pisses me off about debt settlement companies and credit counseling companies, where they sell you their thing every single time, no matter what the problem is, the Dave Ramsey method is they do the same thing. You ever watch one of Dave's shows where you call in? You can't deviate from his thought process or he yells at you. Right? It's like, no matter what your problem is, I'm going to shove it into, I call it the Wendy's way, right? It's Dave's way. You
Right.
got to do it Dave's way, or he gets mad at you. And, and it's just, it's a strategy, and the math can work. And for some people, it's a great way to get out of debt. And for other people, you might as well just stab them in the eye. I mean, it's
Well,
just not going to work.
I wonder how many people, it's got to be close to zero, ever make it past the call screeners by calling in and going, this doesn't work for me.
Well, and I'm sure it's to let some of them through if they have a good enough story where they can say, oh, Dave can make an example out of this guy and tell him how he needs to man up and sell his house and put his family on the street and just tell him, hey, this is only going to be for 5 years. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
Put your big boy pants on. So anyway, well, if you're still listening, you've just done or will be doing one of the hardest things a person can do in debt, which is to gather that number and look at it. So the episodes coming in the next few weeks are where we're going to turn this number into some action. So stay subscribed. It's going to be worth it. Your homework, complete the audit, all of it, write down the total, then take a photo of that number and keep it in your phone. That's the before picture.
Right.
And it is January, so if you want to take your shirt off and stick out that belly, we can do that too. We can lose weight at the same time. But we're going to make that number very different by the end of this year. Stick with us.
Well, you know your number now, and that number doesn't own you. You own it, because now you can do something about it. And damn, I am proud of you showing up for the show today. And we will see you next Thursday. And as Damon said last time, continue to be a financial badass. See ya.
Peace.